What up? How's everybody doing out there? Grand Rising, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on what hour of the day that you're listening to the podcast. Glad to have you guys back again for another episode. And on today's episode, I have professional wrestler Kekoa the Hawaiian Warrior. Kekoa the Hawaiian Warrior has been a worldwide traveling professional wrestler for 14 years with appearances on WWE Evolve and Ring of Honor, also on AEW Dark. He is also part of the wrestling company called MCW Pro Wrestling. Keikoa continues to strive to the top of the wrestling industry while connecting himself to his Hawaiian heritage. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. This is Naqwatsveni podcast. I'm here with professional wrestler, flying Hawaiian Keikoa Mana. What's up, man? Introduce yourself.
So you're going by the very old wrestling name. I have been the Flying Hawaiian for quite some time, so I'm currently Keikoa the Hawaiian Warrior. But like I said, K is perfectly fine.
How did that change from Hawaiian to Warrior or Hawaiian flying to Warrior?
So I changed from the Flying Hawaiian to the Hawaiian Warrior. Quite some time ago. I think it was about like 7 or 8 years ago now. As I was working on it, so the premise behind it was because I was getting these different tryouts. I was getting looked at by WWE, I was getting looked at by Ring of Honor, so on and so forth. And it seemed like every time that I was getting in front of somebody, um, the main feedback that I was always getting was that I had an idea, but like there just needed to be more to it. Like Keikoa, the Flying Hawaiian, was like a very generic, you know, good guy that would just come out and just, do his thing and so on and so forth. But there was just no story behind it. There just needed to be more. So at one point, I took their advice. I was trying to think of something, you know, for more to be added to it. And then around that same time, I actually tore my ACL, so it did give me time. It gave me that, that ability to really come up with, what that character was going to be, how I was going to debut it, how I was going to change, so on and so forth. And the time away also helped me, do that, because it seems like a lot of times when, wrestlers on the main roster, any type of big company, you take time off and they have to evolve in a certain way, and then they come back. Like Chris Jericho is a great example. He's always, kind of disappearing for a little bit, coming back, and he's a different version of Jericho, but he's always Chris Jericho. So that was like my inspiration of like, all right, I got to figure this out, and now's the time. So I came up with a different character. I was basing it off of the original king of Hawaii, King Kamehameha, who, for those that don't know about the Hawaiian history, he was the one that united the Hawaiian Islands, and he's like, he's a god in Hawaii. Um, there's colleges named after him, streets, there's a statue, so on and so forth. Like he is, a very popular figure, very instrumental to the history of Hawaii. As I was researching him, I ended up finding out I was reading some stories about him, and he, sacrificed his children, to the gods in order to win a war. He actually threw them down into a volcano, and I was like, well, that's some heel shit right there. Like that's some bad guy stuff right there. I'm like, man, and this guy's a good guy. I'm like, that's very strange. So then I was like, oh well, that's an easy, transition. Maybe I can base it off of, King Kamehameha. I could be King Keikoa, and so I went back to, roots, and I had a helmet made, I had a robe made, very much traditional, but like new school at the same time of like what a Hawaiian warrior would look like. And then unfortunately for me, after I debuted it and everything of that sort, like everyone loved the character, everyone loved the change. But the problem is there's not a lot of good baby faces out there, not a lot of good guys out there. So a lot of the companies that I was so used to being seen at, even though I made the change, the promoters were like, man, we really want you to be a good guy. And I'm like, well, this is who I am now. And I was really trying to force it, but I also didn't want to lose bookings at the same time. So at one point I'm like, too many people are demanding me to still be a good guy. So I had to figure it out. And I had all this stuff that I invested into between the helmet and the robe. I had to figure it out. So I'm like, all right, well, now what? And Keikoa is, for a lot of people that don't know, Keikoa is my real name. They think it's just a gimmick. And Keikoa means courageous warrior in Hawaiian. And I'm like, well, why don't I just call myself the Hawaiian warrior? And it just made sense. And so then they kind of evolved into, what I am now. And now I'm just trying to be, a modern day warrior. And what I mean by that is just like being, the image for people to, look up to use as motivation, to use as, anything that they need. Um, and just to help everybody, because I feel like everyone is struggling in their own ways. And, if I can be any type of, light for that, then, that's my goal, whether it's wrestling, whether it's my social media posts, whatever it may be. So that's how like that full transition kind of came about.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. Because yeah, I do see like a lot of wrestlers evolve in time when they like when they take breaks from their careers due to injury or just anything, and they come back as a different persona, and it's like holy shit. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but most of the time it does work.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's pretty cool. So, what tribe are you from? What's your
Um,
heritage?
so I'm very mixed. My mom, who is straight white, a lot of European on that side. That's a lot of like European, like German, Irish, French in there, some Scottish. Yeah, kind of all over on my mom's side. But my dad is Hawaiian and Chinese, so that's where those kind of genetics kind of took over.
Nice. So, are you based out in Hawaii or are you here in the States?
So I'm based in Florida. I was born and raised in Pennsylvania because my mom's side of the family is from Jersey. So that's where, essentially it was like, well, we're close to the family over there, but not too close. So they, set up shop in Pennsylvania. And then, like I said, I was born and raised there. And then at one point, it was just time for, me and the family to move south, move to Florida. Um, I thought it was a better career move for me to surround myself with, the best in the world. And everyone's down here because, if you get signed to WWE, obviously you have to move to Florida because you have to, go to NXT, so on and so forth. But I mean, overall, most people move to Florida anyway because they're trying to get, away from winter. So I just wanted to give myself that ability to train with the best in the world. And Pennsylvania, like, there's good talent up there, but as far as like the best in the world, everyone's down here. So I just wanted to put myself into that position that I was going to be able to learn and grow and continue my career.
Yeah, because there is a lot of people that do move to Florida to join NXT and WWE. Even AEW is out that way too. So, what was your first experience when you stepped foot on AEW?
So my first experience was at the Nightmare Factory. I had gotten invited by some friends of mine that train there to come up and have a session with them, and it was really cool. I love the facility. I love how many hungry people are there, and that's what kind of keeps me going. A lot of times, people ask me that question of like, I try to motivate others. Well, what motivates me? And it's being around the people that are like-minded. I keep giving the instance all the time of like, when someone wants to lose weight and they want to go to the gym and they want to eat healthy, a lot of people, need a little bit extra of a motivation. It's hard, it's not easy. So they look for a gym buddy or they look for someone to diet with them to make it easier, so that they're also like someone else is holding them accountable and they're also holding, others accountable. And, and in my opinion, wrestling works the same way. When you're around people that are hungry, that want to travel, that want to, you know, do when they want to go to training and they want to be the best that they can possibly be, those are the types of people that I want to be around. So it was great. It was a great experience to be there, and get to train with them. And then they actually asked me to come back. Um, they were like, "Hey, we would like you to come on Monday if that's cool with you," because they wanted other people within AEW to kind of see me, and that was a really nice gesture. So I made sure I came back. That ultimately led to opportunities here and there with AEW. And overall, I'm just glad that there's another avenue for everybody, because there's so many people within this business that are trying to make a career out of this and it's their ultimate goal. And it's really hard when there's only one option. So I'm just glad that there's more options out there for everyone.
Exactly. And now with Vince McMahon retiring, and there's a lot of people that are stoked to see how WWE is going to change now because Triple H is in charge now. How do you feel about that?
I think it's going to be another paradigm shift, in my opinion. Not that WWE was not going to progress, with Vince McMahon in charge by any means. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is, I feel like there's certain things that happened throughout wrestling history that is kind of like, the rock in the lake type of ripple effect. To give you a prime example, when AEW was even in the talks, in the works, like, oh, there's another company that's going to start, the Young Bucks are going to do it, so on and so forth. A lot of people were very skeptical of it. And I get it, because how many companies have come and tried and, haven't succeeded, or they are succeeding, but like only to a certain limit. Um, a ton have. So when AEW came around and they started, again, like a lot of people were skeptical. Me, on the other hand, I'm like, I don't know. I think this might be different. And obviously it was. Like, look how well AEW is thriving right now. It changed the business. And I think that this is another possibility of that. We'll see where everything goes from here now that he's in charge. And you can obviously already tell the difference between, how Vince would run it and how he would run it. And I think the fans are benefiting from that. Obviously, wrestlers are benefiting from that, because Hunter has a different mindset for things and has different opinions on things, and people have come back that weren't with the company a couple weeks ago, and I don't think any of them were expecting a phone call that quickly, but it happened. So it's just gonna, in my opinion, it's just gonna get more exciting for everybody. So I think it's a great thing.
So people were getting calls back that got fired when Vince McMahon was still in charge.
Yeah, there's several wrestlers that were released previously for different reasons. Obviously, I don't know. I'm not involved, but there was people that were no longer with WWE, and now all of a sudden they're back because Hunter was obviously high on them, because that's why he gave them a call right away. So yeah, it's great to see people are getting their jobs back, and business is shifting. So it's great.
Hell yeah, dude, that's what's up. What is the resemblance of your ring attire, like from your mask to everything that you wear?
What is the resemblance of what specifically?
The mask or headdress that you wear? Because I remember you came out with the mask in AEW Dark.
So I didn't come out with it on Dark, but my helmet that I wear, it resembles kind of a blend of the history of Hawaiian warriors. They would take gourds and make them into helmets. Um, they that's just in our history. But I think that those helmets, because they're made out of gourds, they're very round and they kind of look comical, like to me, like it looks weird. um and I wanted to put a new spin on it, so I got with um some great designers. The lady that made my first helmet, I just gave her the idea of like, hey, here's the old helmets, but I don't want it to look like that. I want it to look a little more new school. And here's my colors: black, white, and orange. What can you do? And she's like, say no more. And she sent me like a drawing, like she drew it by hand, colored pencils, everything, of like how she would make it. And it was a million times better than anything I could have ever imagined. Like, I'm not good with that artistic side. um, so I said, yeah, let's do it. So I had that one. And unfortunately, it was a little fragile. And she even said that, if she were to make another one, she would make it differently. It was her first crack at making something like that. But then I got with Rockwell Masks, and this one is much much better. It still looks great. It's very artistically done. To me, it looks badass, and since it's made out of leather, it's a lot more durable, easier to kind of bring cart around with me than the other one as well. I don't have to worry about someone breaking it. It's not as fragile, so yeah, I'm very happy with it.
And how was your childhood growing up? Which wrestling promotions did you watch? Did you watch WCW, WWE, ECW? How was that?
Um, I only watched WWE. I was aware of WCW. I just, the little kid in me was like, no, I'm always going to be WWE. So I never really watched it. And then I was aware of ECW, um, but I can't remember. I feel like when I heard about ECW and I heard like it was mainly hardcore, like I wasn't really into the hardcore style. Hardcore matches every now and then were fun to watch, but like, not that every match was hardcore for ECW, back in the day, but um, that was definitely a selling point for them. And I think for me, I was just like, no, WWE. Um, and then once I was getting older and then Impact was making noise, I think I didn't want to hop on the bandwagon because I knew other wrestling fans, that I was either friends with or like, around my school. They were hopping on it because it was different. It wasn't WWE, and they had all these, great wrestlers. Like I remember, an old friend being such a mark for AJ Styles, and Amazing Red, and they're phenomenal. Do not get me wrong, but they weren't WWE. So like again, the kid in me was like, nah, I can't like them. Like they're not WWE. WWE is the best. Like I was just kind of conditioned, I guess, in the way. It's just I liked what I liked, I guess.
True, because it's like that now. It's how when AEW came about, everybody was like, "Oh, I'm not going back to WWE because it's PG. AEW is a lot better because it has more of a like violence and all this other stuff." So I was like that. I was skeptical. I was a WWE fan for a while until it kind of went PG. Then when AEW came about like 3 years ago, I hopped on AEW and I was like, oh, this is pretty badass. I like this a lot more because it was more storytelling and how like the wrestlers were doing their own creative. They weren't being told what to say or what to do. So I kind of like that aspect.
Yeah, I completely get it.
But now, we're talking about how Vince McMahon is no longer in charge. Like I'm pretty excited of what WWE is gonna be doing now.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be interesting.
What got you into wrestling?
I believe it was just, I started watching it when I was a little kid. Um, I think, now that I'm a parent, and I understand, it was because my dad's not a wrestling fan, my mom's not a wrestling fan, so it's not like someone put it on because they wanted to watch it and wanted to see if I would like it. I think, it was either on the TV or they were scrolling on the TV to find something that I would like, and I landed on wrestling, and I never let it go. I kind of do the same thing with my daughter. We have Disney Plus on, and we just play a bunch of different movies and see what sticks. Um, and mine was wrestling, and then ever since then, I just was always a fan, even growing up. And at one point, like I never really shied away from wrestling, but I knew as a young kid that I always wanted to be a wrestler. And then when I was getting older, I wasn't sure if that was going to be my path anymore because I was being influenced to maybe do, something else as far as like sports. If I really, because I was always a sport guy, I was always an athletic kid, so I always wanted to do something. So I was kind of pushed in these other directions that I guess were more favorable. But I just loved wrestling too much. At one point, I just completely quit all my sports, and I was like, no, all I want to do is be a professional wrestler. Like I don't want to do this anymore. So I was stuck.
What sports were you playing in high school
So
or?
I always played basketball and baseball. Like those were the big two that I always played, whether it was for the township league or it was, for the actual high school. Um, but I played like everything that I could. Like I loved playing football with my friends. I loved playing volleyball, but I didn't want to sign up for any volleyball like teams. I just wanted to kind of like play and do my own thing. I loved diving, so I loved going to the town pool and just jumping off the diving board. And I remember some of the coaches wanted me to join the diving team, and I was like, "Nah, I'm good." Like, there's so many things that I love doing, but I just didn't. I didn't want to commit to those types of schedules because I was already playing basketball. Like basketball was my number one, and it takes up so much of your time. And I knew at a young age, I'm like, I still kind of want to be a kid though. Like I love being with my friends, and I don't get to have that time with my friends while I'm playing basketball during, the winter season. So I didn't want to play any other sport because it was either in the spring or the fall. So it would have been the same schedule, like, for however many months, in like 6 months out of the year. And I'm like, I don't want that. When I was done with basketball, I was done. All I wanted to do then was just be with my friends. So yeah,
When you started getting into wrestling a lot more, like, did you go to a wrestling school or like were you just doing like? Have you ever done any like backyard wrestling?
of course I did. Everybody did. um,
Yeah.
I yeah, I was doing backyard wrestling with my friends, for fun. That definitely got me more motivated to stay as a wrestler and do wrestling, so on and so forth. We always talked about going to the same school, getting trained together, and then just traveling, doing all of the wrestler things that we wanted to do. Like that was our dream. Um, and then at one point, my senior year, my friends that were doing backyard wrestling with me, they ended up finding a wrestling school that they could afford and that they could start going to. So they actually started training like before I did, and I was super pissed. I was super pissed because I was so jealous. I'm like, oh, I don't know whenever I'm gonna be able to start. Like I don't have any money, so on and so forth. Um, but then it was close to the end of my senior year. A gentleman by the name of Bud Carson, excuse me. He ended up starting his own wrestling school, and he was aware of me, and he knew that I did backyard wrestling and stuff like that. So he ended up getting in contact with me, and he was like, "Hey, I'm about to start my school. I want you to be part of the first class." And at the time, I was about to graduate, so I ended up getting some money from my family as like a graduation present, and I was supposed to use it for a vacation, and I ended up taking that and just using it for wrestling school. And I signed up immediately, and I actually started, I think, like 2 months before I graduated high school. So that was really fun.
Awesome. When you first stepped foot in the ring, what was it like to take your first bumps, like slamming on the mat?
Um, so since I was doing backyard wrestling, um, when I was doing backyard wrestling, I was watching Tough Enough, and they were teaching people how to bump on Tough Enough. So then I started doing it at home, and I was doing it on like couch cushions or pillows, like whatever I could find in order to make a softer surface because my house was it was just concrete. It was concrete and then like carpet over top of it. So I didn't have the most comfortable floor. Um, but yeah, I was doing that, like, at home, and I was getting excited because I thought, like, I was really learning, the ins and outs of wrestling because of Tough Enough, which got me more motivated to do it. But the first time getting in the wrestling ring after I had been doing backyard wrestling for a little bit, it was the first time that I met Bud, and he invited me into the back of the building where his wrestling ring was, and I got to go in and and actually be in the wrestling ring for the first time. And so that experience, I've said it before, like that experience was what made up my mind. As in, like again, I was getting pulled into different directions of like what I wanted to be after high school or what I wanted to do. It was that moment where I was like, no, my mind's made up because I got to go in the ring, and as soon as I touched one of the ropes, I don't know what it was, but it was like a light bulb went off of like, no, this is it. There's no more debating. You want to be a wrestler.
So you got that high off, just stepping into the ring and just loving it and having that passion for it. That's pretty dope.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it was literally like a light switch. It was just like, I'll use the old Forrest Gump type of example. He always said, when he played ping pong, he was like a duck in water. It was kind of like that. It was as if like, as if the duck found the water and they were just like, oh yeah, this makes complete sense. Like why haven't I been in this water before? It was the same thing. As soon as I touched the rope, it was like, why have I ever been debating to doing anything else with the rest of my life? Like, this is all I want to do. And it's all I've been doing now for, almost 16 years.
Right now, are you currently doing house shows like for other promotions?
Um, I'm not doing any house shows for WWE. I haven't been with AEW for a couple months. The last time I was there was for a Dynamite taping in Baltimore. I think it was like 3 or 4 months ago. So it's been a little bit. Mainly, what I've been focusing on is my training, and then just being ready if the phone rings. I continue to wrestle, on the independent circuit by all means. Maryland Championship Wrestling has the priority over all of my other bookings because I've been with them now for quite some time, and there's no other company that runs like MCW. Um, Maryland Championship Wrestling is just such a prestigious place to be. It has a lot of hungry talent. Everything is ran very professionally. They treat me well. Um, they take care of me. I love every single person that's there. So, yeah, I wrestle for them. And then I wrestle for other promotions such as Movement Championship Wrestling, which is actually where I'll be next Saturday on the 27th, which is in Eustis, Florida. I also wrestle for promotions when I go back home up to the Northeast, One CW in Delaware, WDWA World Domination Wrestling Alliance in West Virginia. Um, those places I've been wrestling for years. So anytime I'm back home and we can make it work with the schedule, then yeah, I definitely hop on those shows. There's a new promotion that I'm going to be wrestling for on September 2nd. That is Southeastern Professional Wrestling. It's a new promotion that's going to be making its rounds in Florida, and they're also doing a big show in December in Lewiston, Maine, at the Coliseum Arena. So I still get around. I still travel a lot. Still wrestling, pretty actively, but um, I'm very specific with who I wrestle for and where I go.
Awesome. And as a professional wrestler, what injuries are you susceptible to?
we're
susceptible.
we're
I don't know how to
we're
say.
we're susceptible to all injuries. I mean, there's no limit on what we are susceptible to. You can range from, obviously a lot of people know that people have been paralyzed, people have died in the ring, everything to just a regular bruise. I mean, we're like anything can happen in there. So, it's unpredictable.
What went through your head when you first took your first chair shot?
What went through my head when I took my first chair shot?
Yeah.
So the first chair shot that I ever took was actually my very first match as a professional. We did a student show at my wrestling school, and I faced my trainer Bill Daly, and it was his way of, initiating me into the business. Um, because he was this was 2006 2000 yeah this was in the fall of 2006. So the era and the old school manner that he was trained by and had experience in was just a different time. Like we weren't so focused on concussion protocols like we are now. So it was not that he wanted to give me a concussion by any means, but it was all right. So this is how the match is going to go. I'm going to hit you with the chair at the end. Do not put your hands up. Don't be a pussy. And at the time it was like, yeah, of course, like why would I do that? I want to prove myself, that I am strong enough to be in this business. And I can take a shot if I need to. And I still tell the story. I find it hilarious. So the referee was distracted by Bill's manager for the night. They slide in the chair. Bill's like, holding onto the chair, ready to drill me across the head. And I turn around, and as I look at him to get ready to take the chair shot, he yells, "Welcome to fucking business." And he drills me with the chair. Well, it just so happens that the chair actually went around my neck. And then as I was falling, it was kind of like a Spider-Man moment where like everything kind of slows down and is in slow motion. And I realized like when the chair was around my neck and I was falling, I was like, oh man, if I don't move this chair off of my head, like I could break my neck because the back of the chair is around my neck. I could lay, if I fall backwards anymore and the chair hits the ground and then my neck breaks, over top the chair, like, yeah, that's really bad. So again, like the chair went around my neck. I was falling in slow motion, and it was like, you better push this chair off your head. So before I hit the ground, I was able to push the chair off my head. So like, I didn't get any injuries or anything like that. When you watch the tape back, it's literally in like a split second of between by the time I got hit with the chair to the time I hit the ground, it was a split second. So it's crazy that my body was able to do that. So there wasn't a there was a lot going on in my head when I was getting ready to take that chair shot, and there was also not a lot going on. It's not like I had the fear or anything like that, or oh, this is gonna hurt. It was like, crap, I got to save myself. Like I, the pain was irrelevant because I had to save my neck. So yeah,
Yeah.
there was a lot going on.
Dang, so your instincts just took over. It's crazy how like the body and mind works. It's like when something happens, like your first reactions are try to like protect yourself.
Hmm.
What do you got to say to those people who say wrestling is fake as far as taking bumps such as chair shots and all that stuff?
Well, I mean, everything is fake. Um, so I don't disagree with them from a standpoint of like, it's choreographed and all this other stuff, but like everything is. I actually made a TikTok about this a couple months ago, um, because somebody had made a TikTok and they were just like, I don't understand why you get excited for a thing that's predetermined. And again, like, I use the example of movies. Like we all watch movies, and the movie is predetermined. It's a scripted thing. It's completely fake. It's not really, Captain America and Iron Man. Like that's not real. They're characters. Like we're literally the same thing. So for those that don't understand, but can watch those other things, like that's really weird to me. Like
Right?
I, I'm I get it if you don't like it. So I'll give the same example. I love music. I don't like country music. I despise country music, right? Like, but it's all music. So you can like Iron Man, Marvel series, any other movies. If you don't like wrestling, I get it if you don't like it. If you don't understand it as to why other people like it, that's a difference. Like, I get why people like country music. Like, it's music and it's a version that they like. Wrestling is a form of entertainment and it's a form that people like. Again, same Marvel, same thing. So like there's two different spectrums of like, if you don't like it, that's fine. If you don't understand it, well, that's kind of weird to me because I guarantee that you like some other form of entertainment that's completely scripted.
Like the chair shots and all that stuff is real, right? Like, because you guys do get injured.
Yeah, of course we get injured. Like I didn't tear my ACL fakely, but also, it's not my responsibility to convince somebody else why they should believe me. It's up to somebody that has the open mind to say, like, tell me about this because I want to learn or I want to know. Um, if they don't have that open mind, their mind is already closed off. You're not going to win a battle. You're not going to win. That's what you see on Facebook and social media every single day is just people argue, and all they're doing is they're not arguing, or excuse me, they are arguing. They're stating their case. They're trying to prove a point, but it's like talking to a brick wall, and it's both sides. It doesn't matter what type of conversation you're having, whether it's political or whether it's personal, so on and so forth. What it's going to come down to is when somebody actually has an open mind and it's just like, hey, this is weird to me, so can someone explain that, that has a better idea of this? Because again, like I don't like to get political on social media. um there's people that I very much dislike in the political realm, and there has been times where I've gone on social media and I've said, can someone please explain what is happening with this person, because this doesn't look good, but I might be looking at this wrong. Same thing with, what goes on in this country with police officers. They'll release a video and, and people just make if they don't like cops, they're immediately going to find, why this video is bad. Oh, the cop shouldn't have done this, cop shouldn't have done that. Okay, but are you in the cop's shoes at the same time? I have a lot of friends that are cops, and I've reached out to them and said, hey, have you seen this video? Tell me your side so that I have a better understanding of what's going on. Like, I'm very much in the middle. So it's when people are, yelling at me and they're telling me their opinion of wrestling, it's like, okay, cool. All right, I'm gonna go back to wrestling now. Thanks for telling me. Thanks for telling me what I do. Appreciate it.
Right? I mean, they still watch too, so it is weird.
That's why I don't argue.
With your heritage, like how does it coincide with your work? Just like how Roman Reigns is Samoan.
Mhm. So, excuse me. I would say, Hawaiian warriors were relentless, and they were always, um, I'm trying to think of a way to put it. Hawaiian warriors were relentless with everything that they were doing because they were passionate with, what they were fighting for or what the battle was for. And there's stories about how, Hawaiian warriors before battle would look at the stars and they would see shapes of animals and they would believe that it was messages from gods in order to give them, strength, courage, everything that they needed in order to win their battle. And again, because they were so passionate for what they were fighting for, that's very hard. That's a very hard person to defeat. Um, when someone has a goal and a mission and it's something that they're very passionate for and they want it, like they truly want it, it's very hard to stop them. It's very hard to keep them from that. And like, I'm a prime example of that, where, you know, I looked at my entire life situation 3 years ago, back in, almost 3 years ago now, in 2020, and I realized, you know, I knew where I want to go, and I realized that where I wasn't going to help me get there. I needed to put myself into the position in order to potentially get there. And I changed my entire life for it. You know, like I said, I was born and raised in Pennsylvania. I left the place that I, called home for 20 something years or 30 years, excuse me, and was like, like I need to move away. And at that same time, I was about to have my daughter. My wife was currently pregnant. I was moving away from family into a state where we don't have family. Um, you know, Nothing was stopping me from making that decision and trying to get to where I want to be. Um, I don't care how big of the hurdles they were. So it's very much I very much believe that, when I call myself the Hawaiian warrior, it's not a gimmick. It's my heritage, and it's instilled in me, and I'm going to do everything that I can in order to make sure that I succeed in this business.
And your wife is also a wrestler, right?
She is obviously not right now, since she's currently pregnant with our second child, and she hasn't been active since she was pregnant with our first child. Her last match was actually in March of 2020. Um, and then, yeah, we had our first child. We moved to Florida, and then after our first kid, and adjusting to Florida, still figuring out everything down here. Like it wasn't the best time to focus on, a comeback of the career. And I also kind of was planting the seed, and physically and metaphorically, um, that we knew that we wanted to have more than one kid, because we wanted at least two. We didn't want anyone growing up by themselves, and we also knew that we wanted to make sure that they were close in age. And from every parent that we've talked to, everyone says, make sure they're within 3 years of each other. If you can do two, great, but make sure it's no more than three. So to me, I'm like, it just doesn't make sense for you to like focus so much on getting back to the ring if we then by the time you're ready, we might be trying for round two. And before we even knew it, yeah, it was already here, and she was pregnant, and now the second one's on the way. So now that she's almost done, we're actually today is the official first day of the third trimester. So once she's already said, once I have this baby, it's back to training, it's back to this, back to that. Like I want to get back in the ring. So I'm like, all right, let's do it. If that's what you want, let's do it.
Dude, that's what's up, man. See, like, that's the motivational you need, and for both of you guys to have wrestling background, that's pretty cool. Because like relationships in the wrestling business is like it's hard to because I see it from other wrestlers, like they be in relationship with other wrestlers because you guys see each other every day compared to like having this long distance relationship. So it does work out sometimes.
Yeah, of course there are people that get together and it doesn't work out, but overall, um, you have somebody that is very compatible to you and also understands this business. It takes someone like that. Not everyone has not everyone has to date within the business, but I do say that it is a lot easier because it's very hard to find somebody that's outside of the business that also understands the demands of the business in general. Like, to give you a prime instance, my most recent ex, she didn't understand a lot of things. Like, she on the front she seemed supportive, but then when we were getting into rocky roads, it was like, oh, I don't want to do this, I don't want you to do that, like, I don't understand why you do this or that. And it was a lot of question marks, and I'm like, well, that's how it is. Like, this is my life. And essentially every relationship that I've ever had before my wife, wrestling affected it in some manner, whether they didn't like that I was going to be gone that often, or that fans were messaging me, or this or that. Like, it went on and on. So it made life so much easier when I connected with somebody that was within the business, and we got to share the same experiences, and they understand, what's expected of us, and so on and so forth, and missing anniversaries, missing birthdays, and then making up for it on other days. Like, we're so used to that. Other people are kind of engraved to, like, well, my birthday is on Saturday. Like, well, we have a show Saturday, so can we celebrate Monday? Like, we'll all go out to dinner. I don't know why everyone's so fixated on those types of things. Like, why to me it's not a big deal, but yeah, it life has been amazing since I figured that out.
Yeah, and I wanted to get your opinion. What are your thoughts about Sami Guevara and Tate? What, what were your thoughts when all that happened?
Not my business. So you know, everyone can look at a situation on the outside and kind of come up with their own answers, but until you're involved and or what's going on between all parties, you know, you can't have an opinion. You weren't there. You can only speculate or this or that. So when I see situations like that and they're making an uproar on Twitter or whatever, it's like none of you are either Ty or Sammy or Sammy's ex. There's like literally nothing. You can't have an opinion. It's not your business. So mind your business.
Facts. What's a common misconception about pro wrestling?
What's a misconception about pro wrestling?
Yeah.
I don't know anymore. um, um, yeah, I'm not sure. The big misconception that I was always running into was when early in my career when I was trying to run charity shows or I was trying to host events and stuff like that. That people were still stuck in the old days of like the Attitude Era and thinking that everyone's going to bleed and hit each other with chairs and this and that. And I'm like, no, like it can actually be a very family friendly form of entertainment. It doesn't have to be all that. So that used to be the misconception back in the day. I think that WWE has been in the PG era for quite some time now, that it has taken that much time to shift people's opinion on, is it family friendly? Because now when I speak with different companies and this and that, like there's not as much pushback as there was before. Where again, like people that were hosting that were in charge of the buildings where the show was going to be at, they wanted to make sure like no weapons were used or no one was bleeding and this and that. Like I feel like we've moved out of that. So I don't know what the misconception is of wrestling anymore because I think that's died out.
I see. WrestleMania or SummerSlam and why?
Mania, because it's the Super Bowl. I get it. I get it that they call SummerSlam the Super Bowl of the summer or the WrestleMania of the summer. But it. I get it, but it's not. WrestleMania is WrestleMania.
True. Have you ever been to any WWE events before, like as a little kid?
Yeah, I went to a couple shows when I was a little kid. My dad brought me to um like two or three, I think. When I was younger, there was a an arena on a college campus. It's called the Stabler Arena in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. That's where we primarily went to shows because since it was always house shows there, they couldn't really do taped shows. Except the one time when I was very young, they taped Saturday Night Main Event. Um, at that building. Um, I still remember the main event was Marty Jannetty versus Mr. Perfect. Crazy. Oh no, no, wait, no. It was Marty Jannetty versus the Bulldog, I think. Yeah, it was Marty
Mm,
Jannetty and the Bulldog. But anywho, um, yeah, I went to a couple shows there. I never really went to the big arenas when I was a kid. It was really only that one. So yeah, so I at least got to go to a couple.
that's awesome. And what is your favorite title belt of all time?
Probably my favorite title belt of all time is probably the white Intercontinental title. I don't know what it is. I think it was just because when all of the belts are always been black. So I think like the first time that I ever saw a white championship, and I was like, oh, they could have that. and it's always just been my favorite. I'm pretty sure even when I was a kid, like I told my mom that I wanted the white Intercontinental title as like the foam replica. I'm pretty sure I had it at some point. Almost positive.
Damn, that's crazy, man. I can't believe. Like, I'm still like trying to fathom that I'm talking to you right now.
I'm just another guy. I appreciate it though.
Is wrestling your passion, or are you now finding your way to something else?
Nope, wrestling. Wrestling's all I want to do. Even after this long, it's literally like if I could just wake up every day and just do wrestling business, that's I'm fine. I'm perfectly fine with that. So, whatever I got to do to make sure that happens, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, I just want to get to that point.
Have you met Cody Rhodes, right?
I have met Cody, yes.
How was that experience?
It was just a quick hello. I didn't actually get to work like directly with him, so other than that, it was just a hello.
Nice. And QT Marshall, he's the one that trains at Nightmare Factory too, right? He runs the place.
Yep. Or at least at the time, this was over a year ago. He was yeah, he was running the Nightmare Factory. I'm sure he still does, but it was also like Glacier was helping, run it as well. So I don't know like what their schedule is now because, like I said, I haven't been there in over a year. But yeah, I got to work with QT as well. Um, always good experiences.
Nice. And who is your Mount Rushmore of wrestling? Who would you put as your
Uh,
Mount
yeah, my Mount Rushmore. That's very hard. I feel like you have to put. I feel like you have to put Hogan on there because Andre was like that person on the Mount Rushmore before Hogan, and I guess you could, anyone. I feel like all these conversations are argumentative, and it's like you could say that, you could say this, because it's like Hogan wouldn't be on there if it wasn't for Andre, but I feel like Hogan took it to a different level than Andre did, so I would put Hogan as one. Christ. I would probably put Flair on there because if it wasn't for Flair with NWA and all of these other avenues, like it wouldn't have created the ripple effect of that. Um Christ, that's hard. I like Michaels has always been my favorite, and you could easily say Michaels is on there. But then it's like, but more people say Austin, and I'm like, yeah, that's also very fair. Then some people say Rock, and I'm like, yeah, also fair. Then you say Taker, like Taker was the head of the company, top tier of the company for how long? It's like, yeah, so I guess Hogan, Flair, Taker, and Christ, I'll say Austin. I feel like Austin was the one that carried everyone through the Attitude Era, so I feel like he has to. Even though, like, of course, like Shawn, it's not like Shawn wasn't there, but they're all interchangeable. There's never a right answer.
Yeah, that is pretty hard because there are a lot of legendary wrestlers and wrestlers that put other people on the map, and it is definitely hard. Like I can't even think about who I want on there.
Yeah, and you also you have to look at right now, like Roman Reigns has been champion for like close to a thousand days or something like that. Like when we look ahead, 10, if we were to be 10 years ahead and then look back 10 years, it's like is Roman Reigns in that conversation? Like it's hard because you also have to think about the current. Is Cena part of that conversation? Um, and they are. Like you're never gonna win. You're never gonna win with that answer. Doesn't matter what
Facts.
your answer is.
I'll, yeah. Who's your dream opponent? Like who do you want to face in the ring?
Randy Orton, number one.
Damn. I would love to see that dream match right there. Who else
I
dream
just
matches would you like to see?
anybody that has a contract. um, but no, I feel. I've known that Randy has been one of the best in the world for a long time. Some a story that I tell people from my experience is I did a show. This was crap, probably like 12 years ago now. I did a show with Ted DiBiase Sr. And at the time, this was when Orton and DiBiase Jr. and Cody were doing, their faction. Um, and when Ted Sr. was at the show and he was doing a meet and greet, and then he did the pre-show like meeting, and he kind of like gave a nice little pep talk for everybody to give them something, words of advice and encouragement and motivation, this and that. I took it this way. So that, again, this was when Ted Jr. was signed, and here's his dad, and I feel like every dad is always going to be like, yeah, my son is amazing. Like, look at how my son does. Like, my son is perfect, so on and so forth. For like 20 minutes, all DiBiase talked about was Randy Orton and how amazing Randy Orton is and how flawless Randy Orton is. And I took that as like a huge like, oh shit, he didn't even mention his kid. All he talked about was Orton. So, and that was again 12 years ago, whatever it was. So now there's 12 more years of experience under Randy's belt in the greatest company in the country, or the top country, I should say, not the, whatever adjective you want to use. But so, yeah, that's why Randy Orton's going to be on my number one.
And if you were to face Randy Orton, would you do like a regular match, or would you want to have like a specialties match?
Whatever gets me in the ring. I don't care.
Nice. What are the attributes of a good wrestler?
Number one is passion. Um, and I think passion just kind of overflows into everything else, because the next thing that I was going to say was, um, the right mindset, or like just being smart. But I feel like if you actually do have the right passion for wrestling, then that should overflow into everything else, because you shouldn't be working on shows and then, you know, you're trying to do what's best for you and not what's best for the company or what's best for the show. Like, there's too many people that put themselves into positions to, just succeed on their own. And it's like, no, there's a whole other locker room, that puts on a show as well. So I think if you have passion and you have the right type of passion and you want to do what's best for, again, the company, the show, your opponent, everything, like that's what always is going to make the best wrestlers in the world.
What was your favorite match that you had in your career?
Um, it's tough because I like different matches for different reasons. Um, like some of my matches that I like that are my favorites of my career, they might not be the greatest match that I've had, but there's a different type of sentimental value to it. So like for instance, um, you know, my childhood friend Chad, who I used to do backyard wrestling with, there was a local indie place, called Hardway Wrestling, that used to do shows at this bar down the street from our school. So when we were in middle school, we used to, we would walk from the school to the bar to like go watch these indie shows, and we would just hang out like in town until the show happened, and then our parents would pick us up. And I got to wrestle Chad in that building. So like to me, that was really cool. It wasn't one of my greatest matches, but like it means a lot to me. Um, the mere fact that a couple of my wrestling buddies have asked me to be their last ever wrestling match, like that to me is a huge honor. Aiden Chambers, Matt Saigon, um, it's huge honors for me. Damian Dragon didn't ask me, but I made it happen, and he came out of retirement to have that match. So again, I had his last match. That means the world to me. So those are a couple more. Me and my buddy Joey, like we've had some good matches, and I really liked the one that we built for Work Rate Entertainment back in Pennsylvania, because we built a storyline for like a whole year before we finally even faced each other. And it was the same way when we started our career. We built up a storyline for close to a year, and then we finally had our match, and we filled the damn place because we took our time with that storyline, and it was all great things. So yeah, I could go on and on about why different matches mean the world to me. And I like I said, that very first match that Joey and I had, I mean, this was 14 years ago, 14, 15 years ago. And I know that it wasn't one of my best matches of my career because it was so long ago. If I watched it back now, I would probably hate it, but it meant the world to me, and it's still like one of my favorites because of that.
You're the owner of Work Art Entertainment. How did that come about?
So I wanted to. Uh, I saw a problem that was in within the wrestling industry, and it's people being unreliable. Um, so I was always going to these shows and either, like a day or two before the show, like, oh, we lost the guy that was going to bring our ring. Like now we need a new ring guy. And then it was, oh, we don't have a DJ. Oh, we don't have this. We don't have that. And I was like, man, if I just had everything, because I know I'm reliable. If I give somebody my word, like I'm going to be there. So if I just had everything, then I could essentially just take all of the business, and I can help these companies, and I can, always be there for them, and then they can rely on me for these things. So I went and got a ring and all of this equipment, and then that's what companies started doing. I was busy. It was almost every weekend I had some type of rental because my reputation up there was that I was reliable. So of course companies started contacting me and saying like, yeah, we want you to be our ring supplier or our DJ supplier, so on and so forth. Um, so that's how all that started. And I wanted to make more money, so I wanted to help companies and I wanted to, make more money. So it helped. And then I, took it down here and I got to rebuild that reputation because, nobody knows me down here. It's getting there. There's definitely some companies that want to use me more, but it's just unfortunate with our schedules. Like I haven't been able to do as many rentals as I wanted to. But now that SPW is going to be here and they're starting, like I'm their ring provider. So that's tremendously going to help because I know that they're going to be focusing on running every 6 to 8 weeks. So schedule's going to get busy soon.
Awesome, man. What were your thoughts about Logan Paul on his wrestling?
He earned it. He's phenomenal.
Yep.
You know he's doing everything right. He's a big influencer. It makes sense that it's getting more eyes on the product. Like it all makes sense. For anyone that's butthurt over another spot being taken by a non-wrestling person, I get it. But that means that we have to look within ourselves and say like, okay, well, we're not doing something right, or we need to fix something. Like the spot didn't go to us, so it's on us at the end of the day. Because I mean, look at him. He wasn't even trying to get a contract, and he got one. So if you're doing the right things, it's going to be there. It's going to come sooner or later. So we just have to look at ourselves and just do better.
Yeah, because his matches with the Miz were phenomenal. It was awesome, especially like when he did his first match, and he was like doing crowd work and everything. And when he went to the top rope and he did the shake that Eddie Guerrero does, like he got a lot of a lot of reaction when he did that.
100%.
What does the future hold for you?
We'll see. I don't know. As much as I want to sit here and say like I'm going to be signed within the next 5 years, I've said that for 15 years. Um, all I can do is just focus on the next day and hope that I'm better than I was yesterday, and I'm making the right strides to put myself into the position to potentially, be in that spot or to help a company, do this, do that, whatever. I just want wrestling to be all I have to worry about. So yeah, it's tough. Like, when you say what's the future hold for you? I've said this before, back in 2020, at the beginning of 2020, if anyone would have asked me, where do you see yourself at the end of the year? I would have said in my house, celebrating Christmas. Like, what else would I be doing, within the next 12 months? And it wasn't until August of 2020, so 8 months later, that it was, no, I think you need to move to Florida. And then literally, a 2-hour flight later, uh, I said, yeah, no, that's what I need to do. I need to move to Florida. So even, in July of 2020. So now you only have 5 more months of the year. Where do you see yourself in December? Probably in my house celebrating Christmas. Now it's August. Now where do you see yourself? Well, it looks like I'm going to be in Florida. I hope this works out. And then, we sold the house. The house was not officially sold like as if we were closed, but we had a buyer and we started that process in September. And then the house was officially sold and we signed by the beginning of December. And then, the first week of December, we were in Florida. It's like none of that I could have predicted at the beginning of the year. So close. So it's like when people say, "Where do you see yourself in the future?" I'm like, I couldn't figure out where the hell I was going to be at the end of the year. Every day is going to be different. Every day is going to throw you shit that you weren't expecting. So as long as I'm breathing, as long as I'm healthy, as long as my daughters are okay, as long as my wife is okay, that's all I care about. Whatever gets thrown at me from there, that's all, it is what it is. I'll adjust accordingly.
Nice. And is WWE or AEW or Ring of Honor still the goal, or are you comfortable right now?
I'm comfortable with whoever is whatever. I'm comfortable with whatever avenue is wrestling related, and I'm financially stable and thriving. That's all I care about. If the bills are paid, I'm putting money away. I'm taking care of my family, and I'm wrestling. I don't care where I am. That's what I want to make sure. I just want to make sure that the family's good.
Facts. Family is everything. Like your shirt. One of your shirts says Ohana.
Ohana over everything.
Yep. I like your designs on your shirts. They're pretty cool.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
To wrap up, what piece of advice would you give to all of your fans that would want them to truly listen to, take to heart, and take away?
Best two things of advice that I always give to somebody is the first one is life is too short. If you haven't figured out by everything that we've talked about in this interview, like I've definitely reacted to, kind of in ways of like, I made up my mind and I'm going to go do it. And, I looked at everything as time, especially with the move to Florida and setting myself in the position where I need to be. Like I've made a lot of hard decisions, over the past, again, almost 16 years that I've had to do in order to get to where I want to be or to accomplish what I want. So if I would have waited on all of these decisions, because again, life is too short. So I think a lot of people, when they have as much passion or they have a dream, like I do, they wait for the stars to align. But the stars are never going to align. You have to sometimes, align them yourself. And it's like I had to sell my house. My daughter was on the way. Like I had so much. There's always things that are going to come up, and I feel like people put off, their dreams because they're just like, yeah, it's not the right time. It's not the right time. Well, when is it going to be the right time? Sometimes you have to force these things. Sometimes you just have to take a risk. And life is too short for that because if you're waiting for the stars to align and then it's 20 years down the road and you're like, well, now it's too late, you know, now what? Life's too short. So that's the number one thing that I always tell people, and then the number two thing is, be relentless and just go get it. If you want something, go get it. It's very easy because I see people that say, I want this new video game, and they go and buy it, or I want this car, and they go and buy it. I want to go on this vacation, and they go and do it. But when it comes to themselves and like furthering their careers or furthering their dreams, they put everything on hold. And I don't get it. I don't know why you would do that to yourself, because if you wake up years later down the road and you have regret, there's no bill for that. There's no way to pay that off. You're always going to live with it. So again, life is too short, and go and get it. Just don't live with regret.
Dude, this was an awesome podcast, man. Appreciate you coming on to the pod. Keikoa? Man, I can't pronounce your
It's
name.
K is
My bad.
perfectly fine. I keep telling you that. It's all good.
Where people can find you.
Yep. If anyone wants to find me on social media, I'm at Kekoa Pro on pretty much everything. The only thing that I'm not Kekoa Pro is my TikTok. It's Kekoa HW for Hawaiian Warrior. So make sure that you find my Instagram, find my TikTok, give a follow. You could also find my merchandise on prowrestlingtees.com/Keikoa. Very easy to find. I'm easily on a Google search. So come find me, say hello. If you listen to this and you enjoyed it, make sure you reach out, send me a message, and just say, you listened to this podcast and you enjoyed what I said. Take any takeaways. I always like interacting with everybody, so don't hesitate to reach out.
That was Keikoa, the Hawaiian Warrior. And that was pretty dope talking to him. I hope you guys all have a good day. Stay safe, stay blessed, keep grinding, have that good mindset, and just have a good day. We out. Peace.
All right, no problem. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
So, that's all I got for you today on this episode. Please do me a favor and share the podcast. And if you want to support Naqwatsveni Skateboarding and the podcast, don't forget to head over to our YouTube channel, click that subscribe button, like the videos, and comment. Those quick and easy things really do help us to reach more people. Also, don't forget to visit us on our website at squareup.com/Naqwatsveni Skateboarding for the latest Naqwatsveni apparel, such as shirts, skateboards, hoodies, hats, grip tape, stickers, and more. Until next time, y'all have a good one. Kekoa for listening. Make sure y'all go like and subscribe on the YouTube channel. Follow us on Naqwatsveni Skateboarding on Instagram, Facebook, and Spotify. Kekoa.